both men and women, all the genders having these conversations together. And both men and women left that workshop, whether you were virtual or in person, feeling like, wow, even the men were saying, like, I'm so glad I learned so much. Now I can be supportive to my sister, to my mom, to my wife, or, whatever. And so that's the point. Yeah. And that's how we dismantle that stigma. Like, that's how we break it down. Welcome to the Mind Our Business podcast, where we dive into life's challenges and triumphs while exploring the world of entrepreneurship. Today, we are having a cutting-edge conversation all about period positivity, y'all. It's so important that we have our conversations, and especially we as leaders in our communities, as trailblazers, it's really important for us to take the lead in terms of demonstrating how to talk about this in a respectful way. So I'm so excited. So before we get started, let's do some introductions and remind the folks of who we are. We want to start with Tamika.
Okay. Well, I'm Tamika, your favorite certified recreation therapist, specializing in inclusion and adaptive recreation, always advocating for those with disabilities, as well as our senior population.
And I'm Carla Shahid, the realtor and certified real estate planner, where I help people build, protect, and transfer wealth through real estate.
Simona?
And I'm Simona. I'm a fashion stylist and a personal shopper, curating vintage looks with you in mind.
And I'm Gigi Garcia. I am the owner and director of Vibe Together Bay Area and Move Space Collective.
Okay. And I am the founder of Dr. Carmen Empowers, where through coaching, through teaching, through academic lectures and workshops, we help people to dismantle stigma, to rewrite unhealthy narratives, and to feel seen, celebrated, and confident in their truth. So, y'all, I have the statement for you. I have the statement for you. And so I just want you to share, don't censor yourself, share the first thing that comes to mind when you hear this statement, okay? So this statement, I want you to think about it as it relates to the menstrual cycle, okay? So whatever comes to mind, could be a question, could be a comment, whatever. Don't censor, just go on forward, okay? So here's the statement as it relates to the menstrual cycle. Here we go. The things they taught us to hide are the very things that make us powerful. I'm going to read it one more again. The things they taught us to hide are the very things that make us powerful. What comes to mind?
Rebirth.
Rebirth.
I can't even think. Nothing is popping up.
No, that's what came to mind. That is deep.
Okay, it's deep. It's really deep. And it makes you think, like, it makes you repeat what you just said over and over because you really want to understand what the question is. Mm-hmm. But what comes to mind is that's really deep. Like, that's going to make me think for a minute.
Good.
Yeah. What comes to my mind is like suppression.
Yes.
Trying to suppress, try to hold you back, like hold you back from your power. That's what comes to my mind.
And hiding comes to my mind. They did tell us to hide and don't let people know and things of that nature. So
that's a good one.
Yeah, it is powerful.
Good.
Indeed. So we have rebirth. We have the fact that it is a deep statement.
It's deep, yeah.
We have suppression and that whole hiding, that whole secrecy stuff. So we're going to be talking about all that right now, y'all.
Okay.
So to get us started or to help us continue. So in what ways have society's messages taught us to hide, taught us to hide or feel ashamed of our menstrual cycles? How has society done that?
Because it's always a secret.
Yeah.
When it's time for, that time of the month, it's like mom has to take you on the side and just say, oh, at this time you got to, go get your pads, make sure you take your extra showers. It's always a secret, and it's away from the men. And if anything ever comes up, a question is always just to your mom. It's just a secret, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I would say I feel the same way. Yeah, it's just secret. You don't want to talk about it. You're not supposed to let anyone know when you're on it, other than your mom or maybe a close friend. You want to hide it. I remember in elementary school or whatever, 6th grade is when I started, but tying my shirt around my waist or my jacket around my waist,
just in case.
Just in case.
I mean, because
and
it's
just hiding it,
That's
or,
true.
Hiding the evidence of it as well,
I think it comes down to how it just really makes you feel. Like
Yeah.
when you're on it, it just makes you feel bleh. And then that feeling, it just emotionally it hits you. It's like, I don't want to be bothered. You're moody, you're cranky, you just feel gross. Like I always feel gross. Like me personally, I feel like don't come near me, don't touch me. I don't want to be around nobody. I want to be in my girl curl.
Right.
I'm done.
Girl
girl curl. Fetal position.
Oh yeah, sometimes
That's how I really be on that time. And and you're like that for days.
Right.
So
and growing up too, my grandmother and mother, it was a secret thing. Even when you go to the bathroom, make sure you grab your jacket or, like she said, a tie around your waist so you can put your, pad or tampon so people wouldn't see it. You always want to conceal it. Just like if you spend at someone's house, bring an extra bag. And, and I think the reason we got to this too, even as growing up, once it became, more popular, even rap music, and sometimes made people feel ashamed about it. There's been in a lot of raps and in a degrading way. So
like the media,
So I think that women protected that, thinking like, well, these men get a hold of it. And some of them would, maybe, treat us, differently, kind of like opposite of emasculate us, but.
And I don't know if you guys had this experience in school, especially the younger boys, they would make fun, of that year because of that time, because at some point they would get that, when a girl has the shirt around or when they're very secretive or they bring in a little something to the bathroom is their time.
Right.
And they would tease about that. So it's an embarrassing time.
Yeah.
And then the other day I was surprised to have just even read in the Bible that during that time for women, they consider them unclean.
Even to this day.
Well,
in Bali,
how long it started though.
Well, it goes
so at
back,
that time, it was like they're unclean and they cannot go into certain places at that time of the month. So you this is not something new. This has been going on
for generations and generations.
Learned behavior.
In Bali, you cannot go to the temple if you are on your period. You're considered unclean.
Yeah,
and it's a cleansing period, right?
Yeah,
so it is a cleansing period.
But to this day, though, this is.
Yeah. Well, I have a newborn grandson, and people.
Yay,
one of my
congratulations.
Thank you.
He's so cute.
Thank you. One of my friends, she's kind of an old school, and she says, "Oh, you don't let anybody on their period hold your baby." I'm like, I never heard that.
Where that came
and
from?
I said, some old school people say that, and I'm like,
Is
how
she
would
old?
I know?
Is she old?
No, but old school. But
but
how would I even know? Like, how would I know if you were on your period?
Girl,
So
yeah.
But how would they know in Bali?
Get some education.
But still in Bali, how would they know?
Get some education
because it's being taught.
That's their old. That's what they've been.
But I mean,
taught.
you're on vacation, you're going to the temple. They don't know.
Well, they have all these signs, and they let you know if you are on your period, you cannot go.
Does it say period?
It says menstruation. Yeah,
menstruation.
If women are, if they're menstruating, you cannot go into the temple. You can't.
So how do all these negative messages, because I grew up with them too, I grew up feeling ashamed, being in the public restroom and not wanting nobody to hear that I was opening up the little package for my period care products, although it's a women's restroom and we all experience the same thing. Anywho, that's how big and deep the shame goes. So how do these negative messages impact our relationship with our bodies?
You feel shameful sometimes, and you shouldn't. Because
it's a part of nature.
It's a part of nature.
Yeah.
It's a time of the month where your body is cleansing and preparing itself for those who are able to have babies. That's the point of it.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy that we feel so ashamed at that time. Yes, we're going through the uncomfortable time, it's all the pain or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think if society didn't make us feel ashamed, didn't make us feel like, oh my God, it's a secret, we will be able to get through those painful moments a little with more ease.
Yeah. But I also think too, some people's body, does, turn on you that month. Some people do have a lot of bloating, a lot of cramping, increased odor.
That's
and that's another thing too,
Yep.
whether somebody else knows or not. Sometimes I'm even gassier during that time, like, what's going on? The foods don't even process to me. So sometimes you can have your own self-image, or I have to put on extra body spray and, perfume, and make sure and double, because I'm, sometimes conscious too. Like sometimes, I think our own body can, give us that.
You don't feel confident.
Things.
You're not confident with your body. You know what I mean? During that time, I know I wasn't. Like, I couldn't wear certain things. I couldn't look a certain way because I didn't feel like it.
You can't wear white.
Because when you're on it, you
used to couldn't
wear
white.
You can't wear white. You can't even get in the pool.
That was the thing.
I can't even get. I don't even want to get in the pool.
Yeah, but that's all emotional.
I mean?
And that's all mental.
It's a mental
That's
thing.
what happened to us, because absolutely you can wear white.
Yes.
You can wear any color you want. It's about how you take care of yourself. Right.
And that's what was taught to us, though, right?
Learned behavior.
You're scared, but
correct.
I always thought of it as things that you can't do during that time. So you can't go swimming, right? You can't wear white. You can't, there's like all these things that you can't do,
That was me.
Yeah.
And see, my mom would say, no, you can go swimming. As soon as you get in the water, it stops. Get in the bathtub, it'll stop. You can get in the pool.
Can't get in the water with your pad on.
Well,
tampon.
Or a menstrual cup.
Or a menstrual cup.
Once you get in, it does stop.
I don't think we had menstrual cups back then.
When we was swimming back in the day, we wasn't taught to wear a tampon.
Well, I was.
We were. Your mama taught you to wear a tampon?
I didn't have a choice. I was on a swim team.
Yes.
So, on a swim team, we swam and we never had any problem. I never had a leakage issue. Matter of fact, it did stop every time. And I was an everyday swimmer. And so every time, I would come out and I'd take the tampon out and I look at it. Oh, sound nasty. Huh? But anyway, I look at it, nothing's there. And then as soon as you put that pad on, hey, baby, hello,
the water
I'm still here.
Well, I would think that a lot of people, well, I'm going to say this, right? This is a stereotype. Most Black people ain't swimming like that back in the day, right? I would say.
And that's why my mom made us. So she said, we don't want you to fall into that category. Black people do swim. So we've, even PE, you get in the water.
Not growing up, all my Black friends
we did not swim, right? And
No.
we did not talk about tampons. But, we've evolved. And that's good that you were. I didn't know about tampons until I was like in high school.
No, I was in my 20s.
Wow. Shut up, girl.
Girl, I'm not playing.
Wow.
I was on tour. I was This is like at the height of my dance career. And I had no choice but to wear it, because if you want to get paid, you got to do what you got to do to.
True.
And that was another thing why I was just like so irritable and didn't feel a certain way. But you learn to push through, and you learn to really just kind of fake it and just really just push yourself, because it still makes you feel gross.
But the cup is not something that was around when we.
Not when
I never used the cup.
No.
It was called something else, though, right? Was it a diaphragm? No, that was
that is a whole.
That's
another conversation.
Right. From having babies.
But I just want to say, Tamika, you said I take my my tampon out and I look at it. That sounds nasty. It's not nasty. It's about knowing your body.
Yeah.
You need to know how much flow you got going on, right? So you can be confident in terms of taking care of yourself.
True.
Looking at your pads, looking at your panty liners, like all of that is important in terms of knowing your body.
Mm-hmm.
So y'all know, a side of me is an academic.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
some years ago, I was teaching the psychology of women, and I really started like thinking intellectually about this whole menstrual cycle piece and the stigma around it. And I was like, wait a minute. The menstrual cycle is required for the human species to continue.
Right.
Hello.
Yes.
Why don't it have more respect on its name?
Hello.
Like logistically, logically, that didn't make any sense to me, whatsoever.
Yes. Right.
So I just want to offer that this issue of the stigma around the menstrual cycle is bigger than just that. It has to do with the overall value of women.
Ooh.
And women's bodies.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Because girls who grow up to be women are taught that their bodies are at a deficit, that their bodies are less than because they have this period. you know,
That makes
and for lots
sense.
of other reasons. Now,
Right.
we value the body when it comes to having sex and the breasts and all of that stuff.
Right.
Mhm.
But when it comes to this piece, which is a normal bodily process, this is
Normal,
like
yep.
basic body literacy that everybody should know, it becomes devalued. So I just want to offer that in some thought.
That's
pretty
good.
deep.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's real good.
But
That's
there
good insight.
is a culture, and I remember watching a video with you, and I don't remember what culture it is, but that actually celebrated that time.
Yes, there are some cultures around the world that actually celebrate menarche. Menarche is the technical term for a young person's first period, where the little, and it's so beautiful, she gets dressed up in all her colors and she gets adorned, and it's like a community celebration.
Yeah.
So the dads are there, the uncles are there, the little cousins are there. And it's sort of like her coming out, yes, and her presentation to the world, which I absolutely love. And I just would assert that that's something that in the U.S. really should take a hold of to celebrate. And in addition to that, for our young people, talking positively about the menstrual cycle from jump, right, from the beginning, so that our young people are almost looking forward to it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that would just be so powerful if that is, what happened in our society.
I
think it
agree.
would be amazing.
Well, my cousin, her mom is from Louisiana, and she said when she first started her period, like in 6th grade, her mom was like, "Oh, she's a woman now." Telling everybody she's a woman, and she was like, "Oh, mama," and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's too much for me. Like, it ain't everybody's business, you know." But her mom was excited, like, "She a woman now," and I'm like, "Oh,
And I
wow."
think each family can decide how they want to acknowledge it, but it's a milestone, and it's really, really important for our young people to be able to acknowledge milestones, like it's a part of their rearing, and this is a positive milestone. So
But do you think that it should be called like womanhood? Or because I remember hearing that too. Now that you started your period, now you're a woman. Now you can have, so you better not get pregnant or, something like that. Could it be something different? Because as a child, you're still a child. You don't want to hear, oh, you're a woman, or oh, you can, get pregnant. Like that's a lot, for a child. So I do agree that it is a milestone, but I just don't like it being associated with
womanhood,
which it is a part of it. It's a part of it, but can we say something else?
What else would it be associated with?
Well, it's a milestone of getting. What do you say, Dr. Carmen?
Well, I think yes, it definitely is a milestone, and like girls younger and younger are getting their periods.
They are.
8,
Yes.
10,
Yep.
So definitely not a woman. I mean, even when you're 12, 11, I think I was 11 when I started. I'm not a woman at that point,
I'm not thinking about sex or anything.
Exactly. Back in the days, they
were.
That was a woman, you guys.
Mhm.
At 12 years old, there were women that were married and having babies and taking care of the household. So I know
in
for
different
us
cultures,
today, society sees it as we're not women and they're not. But back in the days, it was considered a woman, and they actually had families.
Yeah, that's true. But how can we change it for today?
That's too
right.
good.
I understand that, but how can we change it for today?
Mhm.
Like what do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it definitely can be changed. I think languaging is very important. And, we leaders, we can all think about, what sort of languaging we might use to replace now you're a woman piece. Now this is another point in your development. You're so excited, or now it's a step toward becoming, But I think that warrants some thought. I think it warrants some meditation, some prayer on it, so we can be really, really intentional around the languaging. Yeah. And by the end of this episode, we might come up with something. So
Actually, I think it should be a conversation that happens way before it comes.
Oh, definitely.
So I think that will help as well.
Yes.
It reminded me of the Cosby Show, because I used to do the Cosby Show. But do you remember when Rudy was getting her womanhood? They saw it as something positive, and I loved it because her older sister, I don't know if it was Denise at the time, but the older sister was like, "Oh, you're going to be able to spend the day with mom, and you guys are going to be able to have fun together and watch movies." And they made it very positive, very positive. And it was so cozy. And it was just a time to bond with your mom. And so I like that idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So Tamika, I know that you had this fabulous idea of donating what I call period power kits to schools, and you've brought some here to tell us a little bit about them. But what impact, as you talk about these kits, what impact does stigma have on young people who are having periods?
Well, you know, most young people, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of young people are just not even prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're not in preparation, everyone doesn't have that mom or dad or whomever is going to speak to them about it prior. You know, we talk a lot about when it happens, but they're not prepared for it, so they don't know when it happens. And it was an actual workshop that I came to, you know, went with you to, and we broke up in small groups. And in that conversation, we talked about school. And when we were in school, and I think the nurses station, you may be able to go and get a pad or what have you. If an emergency happens, you start that day. But kids are not prepared.
Right.
And so we were like, you know what? I called you right after and I said, we need to have these power kits. Get kids prepared. Get these girls prepared so they can feel comfortable. And so we have these. Some people call them hygiene packs. We call it power kits, right? So everybody has one. So this is just to get people started. So the idea was from my company, More Recreation Therapy and Consulting Incorporated. Take all that in. We decided to do donation of about 50 kits. And then also, Carmen, also you were like, you know what, I can donate my time if anyone wants me to come into their school and teach them a little bit about what I have. Okay. And why are these important? So just to get girls started, I wanted to have, you know, some wipes in there because you want to feel a little refreshed, especially when you're changing between. We wanted to have a little plastic bag in here for our soiled ones. And then you would have like maybe clean underwear in there just to make sure if you needed to change. And then you can use it also if you needed to throw one away. And then we wanted to have 2 different sides because we know we have different flows.
Right.
So most of the time we use the one in the beginning, the smaller one, and then we have the larger one if you need it. And then I just think at that time we know we need to freshen a little more, and so I put a little travel size deodorant. But there's some additional items that you can put in there. You guys can chime in if you think about some extra stuff. But I actually put travel toothbrush in there, travel toothpaste, because I just want to feel totally refreshed at that time. And we want our girls to know, and this is one of the things that I told my daughter when it was that time of the month, you know, let's get a little extra refreshed. So if you want to put a little body spray on after you went in the restroom to change, you put that extra deodorant. You may want to brush your teeth. You may have a little travel lotion that has a little scent in it. Just make yourself feel a little more fresher and feel good.
And the reality is, like we've kind of touched on, that our young people do not know about their bodies. A lot of adults don't either.
Right.
But when
That's
that's
clear.
So I teach a workshop called Power to the Period.
Power to the
Period.
period.
And it is designed specifically for preteens. So ideally before they start their menstrual cycle, and a parent. So it could be a mom, it could be a dad. And, you know, in the beginning, it's a 4-hour workshop. In the first 3 hours or so, it's just me and the young people. So the parents are not there.
Oh, okay.
And so I do something funny with them. I was like, show me where your head is. And they're like, what's he talking about? Of course we know where our head is. Show me where your arms are. Da, da, da. Show me where your uterus is. Silence. They're like, oh. They don't know where their uterus is, you know. So I show them, you know, how to find it, you know, where it is. And so again, there's that basic body literacy that is so important. And that's the empowering piece, is the knowledge.
Right.
We'll share a little bit more when we talk about some inner seasons. But what I wanted to point out about this piece is that adults don't know about it either. And at the last hour of the workshop, the parents join us, and the young people teach the parents what they've learned. And the parents are so amazed, like, whoa, I didn't know they had all this stuff. Whoa, I didn't know it could be positive. whoa, I didn't know we could think about it like this. And the feedback, from both the young people and the parents is just such amazing. And we do sort of a little like rite of passage thing where the parents and young people have their bonding moment. And it's amazing. And so they walk away feeling so much better about the menstrual cycle.
Nice.
It's important.
So I do have to share this. My husband actually attended virtual.
Virtual. It went viral.
It went viral. I liked how you flipped it. So it was a virtual workshop. And I believe it was all daddies.
Yes.
And when he left from the workshop, he explained to me and he said, wow, first of all. And he said, because first he was really going just as support. Right. And so he didn't have the expectations, I'm going to come away with something so great, but he did. And when he came to me, he said, you know what? Originally, one of our daughters, it was that time and they had just started. And he said, most dads, we kind of just step back and let the mom take care of that. And, I wasn't going to say anything to her, but I think I'm going to have a conversation with her and let her know that daddy's here. And that you can let me know if you need anything. And I understand this time that what's going on with your body, and have that dialogue with her. And that was not going to happen until after this workshop. And then after he did have that conversation with her, he told me, he said he feels like there's an extra bond now.
Yes.
So now daddy is trusted even more, right? And they're, now she can come to him anytime, Dad, I need this, I need that. And he's, he understands and he's part of that dialogue.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate that that doesn't happen a lot. So he definitely thanks you for that.
No, thank you for sharing that. So the workshop you're referring to is the Fearless Father-Daughter Talks workshop. And I really believe that more dads need to know that they are so important, critical, and vital in terms of planting those seeds of body positivity in their baby girls, right? in their daughters. They're critical. Like, I just can't stress how important dads are in that, especially when dads initiate the conversation with their daughters. That is so important because it teaches daughters quite a few things. But one, when they grow up and start interacting and start having romantic relationships and things like that, they're going to be remembering daddy, right? And how he's able to not only have this conversation, but initiate the conversation, which is so, so important.
So, Dr. Carmen, when do you think that this should take place, and how would fathers get a hold of you to have this workshop?
Yeah. So
when?
I think it should happen early on, and in my larger coaching program, which is the Girl Dads Game Changer coaching program.
Nice.
In that one, it's not just about the menstrual cycle. It's about dads learning the essence of their daughter's adolescence before she gets there. And the whole point of it is so that dads early on start continuing that father-daughter bond, because, if you a daddy's girl when they 5 and 6 and they have that connection. But there is a point for a lot of dads when they see, she wearing a bra now, or they see she's starting her period, where they pull back a little bit.
Yeah.
And girls can feel that. I've had grown women tell me, I thought daddy didn't love me anymore because he pulled back. He didn't know how to engage during that time frame. But dads, you got a special daddy mojo. That your daughter is wanting and needing, at that particular time. So age appropriately, I think, dad should be a part of sons and daughters, knowledge and education around body positivity, right? So I think it should start very early on. And they can email me to find out. drcarmen.empowers at gmail.com. And I would love, you can schedule a free consultation and we'll talk about where you are, what's going on with your daughter. And we'll get you moving on that. So
and
thank
mothers
you.
can contact you too,
Oh,
right?
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, leaders of organizations, if you want to bring the power to the period workshop to your organization, to your job, what have you, absolutely.
Because it's important. And we do want to change the narrative, and we want us all to feel comfortable. I know I have 3 daughters, and when they started their period, it was like, oh, okay, dang, my baby. But I made sure that they were prepared to have their little kits with them. It wasn't as fancy as this, but I said my thing was like, okay, look, you're probably going to be starting your period pretty soon, and here's what you're going to need,
Yeah.
But I think this is beautiful what you're doing.
I love it too.
So keep on and let's spread the word.
Thank you,
So
thank
is this
you.
how men can help with dismantling the period stigma?
Yes.
And be part of these conversations?
Absolutely. And it's a must, because someone mentioned earlier, I think it was you, Tamika, talking about, when we were kids and the boys would tease.
Yes.
And that is because of the secrecy.
Yes.
They don't know what the heck going on.
No.
Right.
Like, it's mysterious. It's this mysterious thing. And they
True.
just know what they've heard, but
Bloody
they
Mary.
right,
Yeah.
all of that.
Oh, yeah.
They know nothing. And,
Right.
some grown men reflecting back on their adolescence said, well, I didn't know about it, so I just made a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we certainly don't want to place blame anywhere, because it's a society issue,
Right.
right?
Yes.
It's a
Yeah.
societal issue. So educating the boys about it, again, basic body literacy.
Right.
And when dads are doing the education, even more powerful.
Absolutely.
Like,
Nice.
even more dope.
Yeah.
Like, that's how
Super
you bring
dope.
your A game to fatherhood.
Yes.
So yes.
Okay. Well, good.
So with my son, anytime it was, that time of the month where we're driving in the car on the way to school and we're talking about it, I always had the open dialogue in front of him. And so to this day, I think me and him went to the store, and he's 19 years old now. So mind you, since a little kid, he's been hearing about, menstrual cycles, periods, no big deal to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were in the store, and he said, hey, mom, such and such said to get her some pads. She wants the ones with the wings on them. So it was like no big deal to him.
Right.
It was
Yes.
like, and I said, oh, which ones? He said, well, I think it's these. So it's totally normal for him.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to see, because guess
Yes.
what? When he grows up and now he's a dad,
Yeah.
and even with his wife before
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
he understands.
Yeah.
I was
You
going to say
know?
this will help them deal with even the person they're dating or married
Exactly.
to, or
It's normalized,
understanding. Yeah, it needs to
and
be
so we have to
normalized.
stop that cycle,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
It's getting better though now.
It
Like
is.
it's getting better. I think more so from when we were growing up, right?
Yeah.
I think it's getting better, but we still have work to do.
Yeah,
We
because
do.
I see a lot more men in the feminine products.
Yeah, they getting their
section.
wife
They don't.
stuff.
They don't
Picking
care.
things
They
up.
just be grabbing
Like,
stuff.
right,
Like,
Right. I want
they
the
have
one
no
with the
shame no more.
wings.
Always the one with the
They're
wings.
reading the
That's what you
labels
get.
and they're like,
Yeah.
okay, that is what it is.
Now, Carmen, I want you to explain something to me real quick, because I've gone to several workshops.
Okay.
So I just said my husband went to one that was all men, and then I went to one with my sorority had a mentorship group of girls that were junior high school through high school, and you came there and you had this content, as well as we went to the one I said where I got the period, where the Power Kids came from, and it was men and women together.
Yes.
So what is the difference between all of these types of workshops?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So the one that your husband came to that was just dads, that's the Fearless Father-Daughter Talks.
Okay.
And then the one that we did for your sorority, that was we did it virtually.
Yes.
And that was
a pandemic.
Right. It was a scaled down version of Power to the Period.
Okay.
So that's what we did there. And then when you came to the college campus, when you and your husband came to the college campus, that was my lecture on dismantling menstrual stigma as an act of social justice.
Nice. Okay.
And so I'm a firm believer that we need to have both men and women, all the genders, having these conversations together. And both men and women left that workshop, whether you were virtual or in person, feeling like, wow, even the men were saying like, I'm so glad I learned so much. Now I can be supportive to my sister, to my mom, to my wife, or, whatever. And so that's the point.
Yeah.
And that's how we dismantle that stigma. Like, that's how we break it down.
But I was going to say, I have a friend and she says, oh, every month, I'm PMS, so I'm going to be cranky this month. So I'm like, you're planning? She's like, no, it happens every month. So she actually buys into it. I'm like, I don't buy into PMS. Sometimes I can get in the mood, but I'm not buying. But she says it every month. Well, I PMS, I do this. And so if I'm this way, it's because of that. So I'm like, so she's always cranky because, all right, when you see this one pimple on my face, you know what time it is, but she's negative about it too. Like, she doesn't, embrace it at all.
When you are in the mindset that this is going to be painful, this is going to be horrible, your mind is set to be conditioned that way. So yes, I'm not saying it's not painful. I went through the pains as well. But I know that when my mind had to shift because I was an athlete, I had to play basketball, I had to swim, that was going to happen. The coach not going to say, oh, you got to sit on the side.
Yeah, you have to push through.
Time of the month. Yeah, so because my mindset changed to, okay, on that time, now I got to do a tampon instead of a pad. Yeah. And now I got to have extra in my pocket and I got to keep it going. And little do you know that when your mindset changes and you're in more motion, there's actually less pain.
Right. Yes.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh, I get it.
It's mindset.
I don't claim none of that stuff, but other people still buy into it. So yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I think sometimes it could be used as an excuse. Like
that's what I'm saying. Hello.
And this is
hello. Yeah.
But mindset definitely plays into it.
Yes.
And one of the other things that's important to that I think a lot of people don't know about is that we use the term menstrual cycle, and the word cycle implies that there are different phases.
Right.
But most people don't know about the phases. They think they're either on the period or they're not. And that's adults too, And so I think it's really important to sort of break down the 4 phases of the cycle. And I like to call it our inner seasons, right? Okay. We all know about seasons of the weather, right? Yeah. The weather season, spring, summer, winter, fall, right? We all know about those. So if you can kind of use that as sort of the framework to walk through these different phases of the cycle, I think is so important. So let's start with when you're actually menstruating. That's when you're on your period, right? We think of that as the season of winter, okay? And in general, when it's actually winter, we like to be in the house a little bit more. It's cold. We like to cozy up with the hot cocoa or whatever else, whatever libation you got in your cup, Yeah. And so when we're on our periods, our magnesium tends to drop, which is why some of us crave chocolate. Chocolate is a source of magnesium. I'm not saying go out and eat all the chocolate, but that's one reason for that craving.
Your sweet tooth kicks in for sure.
And stuff like that. But it's an important time of reflection, of journaling, of being still. Stillness is important.
Yes.
Right? So that's winter. Now when the first day of your period, that you can count that as day 1, because I'm talking about cycle tracking now. And however long your period lasts. So that might be day 5, day 7, whatever it is. So what comes after winter? Spring. So spring represents new beginnings, right? Yes. We're blossoming, we're blooming, okay? We're starting over, right?
Yes.
And this is a time to start to plan what you want to do for the next phase that I'll describe in just a minute. So spring is that time where you're like, yeah, this is what I want to get done. I want to jot this down. I have my list. So you're more active, right? So you just came out from a couple of days of, being still, and now you're more active. Okay. So then we know summer comes after spring, and summer you're like, boom, this is production mode. Okay. Yeah. This is when I'm implementing everything that I just planned in the previous phase.
Yeah.
If you are trying to have a child, this is ovulation. Okay. So you want to have as much sex as possible during ovulation.
Spring.
If that's your goal.
Summer.
That's summer. Summer is the productivity. But it's also about being productive in your business, being productive in other areas of your life. So I don't want people to think that periods are just about, or that the menstrual cycle is just about, I can get pregnant and I'm not pregnant. Hallelujah. Okay. But it's about birthing other things as well, birthing new ways of being, perhaps. Okay. Yeah. So then we're at fall. Okay. So in fall tends to be the season where we begin, if you have these symptoms, we begin to have premenstrual syndrome symptoms. I like to reframe it and call it premenstrual self-care. Okay. Fall is a time of harvest. Okay. If you think of harvesting, right? Fall is a time of harvest. So that is a time to reflect on all the great things that happened in the previous phases. You did some planning in spring, you were productive in summer. So fall is a time to say, okay, so what went well? What was good? What can I celebrate? Right?
Yeah.
Right? It's powerful,
It
right?
is powerful because I'm thinking, is this when you eat the pie and you're reflecting like
Yeah, and fall is also a time to declutter. So we can be talking about physical clutter, which is, a lot of us need to do that, but we're also talking about spiritual clutter as well. Taking an inventory of those behaviors, ways of thinking that are no longer serving you, and those people who we might need to put them on the outskirts.
Right.
And that's real. That is so real. So spending that time is so important. Now, it's just so amazing. So we just went through the 4 phases.
Yes.
Right? It's just so amazing when we begin to think about the fact that our bodies have an internal clock of self-care. It's built in. Our self-care system is built in. We just haven't been taught about it.
No.
Right? We've been hoodwinked and bamboozled to think that our bodies are a deficit when the power is in knowing that we have this clock built in to take care of ourselves. So you just imagine like, okay, for this time of the month, I'm going to go inward. I'm going to be still. I'm going to journal, watch my movies or whatever.
Yeah.
This time I'm going to plan what's happening in my business, what's happening at school, what's happening at work. This time I'm going to execution of my plan, being productive. And then I'm going to get ready to go back and, for my stillness, but I'm going to reflect what worked, what went well. Let me celebrate that and purge the things that are no longer working for me. It's powerful.
That is
That's
so
so
powerful.
good.
And
I
thank
love
you so
it.
much for breaking that down. When you were describing all of that, I was literally like thinking in my head, okay, yes, that's how I was feeling when that happened after my period. I was feeling like this and then that, and then I want to
It's so
retreat.
true.
And then I want to
Yeah.
So thank you for breaking that down.
Yeah.
Is there a chart for this?
There is.
There
so
is?
I
Okay.
use it in the Power to the Period workshop. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Is this something that you can share?
I can
to our
share it.
audience
Yes.
Or something
Yes.
Like that?
Should we put it?
Maybe
Yes.
We should definitely put that in there because that's like cool. Like set it up to have it up on
Yes.
your refrigerator.
Yes.
Just somewhere to look at.
Having the visual.
Having the visual.
Yes. So important.
I love that.
That's actually an advantage that we have as society is doing opposite to us as women.
Yes.
We have this internal clock to say, hey, this is the time to slow down. And it really, that cycle that you just talked about, is really pertains to business a lot.
Yeah.
And because as entrepreneurs, we go, and we don't take the time sometimes to reflect. Look back at your business plan and see, is this working?
Yes.
What do I need to do over? Do I need to go back to that dream stage? So while I'm going through my period of winter, that's my time to, okay, let me rethink this. Let me look back. Let me look back at my business plan. Am I doing everything I'm supposed to be doing? Let me evaluate.
It gives you reasons.
Right.
Yes,
And
I
then
love
now,
that.
when you get to that summer, now you're ready to execute.
Yes.
You go back and now I'm gonna put myself in front of those right people because I have this energy. I've already planned. I know what I'm doing, and now I can celebrate.
Absolutely. Ain't that beautiful?
That is
It
wonderful.
is
I
so
love it.
beautiful.
Thank you for
But
breaking
I
that
do
down.
have a question for you. So those that are not menstruating right now, or that don't have a period now, are we still experiencing those seasons?
So yes.
Okay.
You're still experiencing those seasons. And I think we could do another episode like on menopause.
Please. Yes.
We
we gonna do
that.
that. That's when we can break down those seasons.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because the body is still cyclical.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're still going through those
Yes.
cycles that are
Yes.
in menopause. We're still going through that. Okay, great.
Yes. I love it. I love it. So, ladies, I so appreciate you all for taking the leadership and having such an important conversation, demonstrating how we can talk about it in ways that are loving, that are compassionate, that are knowledgeable.
Right.
So we want to give our listeners a little challenge, a little call to action.
Time.
So let's break this down. So this week we want everyone to take one step toward period positivity. So, step 1 is self-reflection, and we want you to write down your earliest memory of learning about periods and how it shaped your perception. So, do that self-reflection. Step 2 is to start the conversation. Share a period-related story with a friend, a family member, or a partner, and just start dialoguing about it.
Yeah.
Step 3 is to embrace self-care. If you're menstruating, track your cycle, like we just talked about. Notice how it affects your mood. There's so much more we can talk about because eating impacts it as well.
Absolutely.
Notice your energy levels, notice your productivity. Just pay attention to that. And then we want you to share your experiences in the comments. Tell us how things are going. Tell us how those conversations went. So before we go, y'all, we want to give a little shout out to Brother Percy Robinson.
Shout out, Percy.
Taking care of us. Thank you, Percy.
Yes.
And until the next episode, stay true to yourself and remember, let's mind our business. Bye.